words because I is actually not an object, but it is a subject. It is the substratum which remains when somebody is in waking consciousness, then during dream and during deep sleep. So that is the I which remains. And also there was some anecdote about Emperor Janaka and how he is challenged or how he has a ticklish situation. But what I felt, and I'm sure many of you would have felt, is at least we will not be anytime put in that kind of a position. Nobody is going to put us. Maybe after we have become self-realized, maybe we may face that challenge. So with that short introduction, short brief of what we covered last week, I now request Vani Vasudev to take on and proceed with today's teachings on Upadesha Saram. Thank you.
Namaste and a warm welcome to all of you. Thank Janki Ramji for the summary, Ram for the beautiful prayer, and all the organizers of the School of Ancient Wisdom, Sajni, Ravi, Veena, Janki Ram, Malti, Aniket, all those who are involved in organizing these wonderful sessions on different days of the week. I thank each and every one of you for joining this satsang, where we are continuing the study of Upadesha Saram, authored by Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi. I'll just share my presentation. Are the audio and video clear?
Yes,
Clear,
very
madam.
clear.
Oh,
Very clear,
Thank you.
Vani. Yeah.
Okay. So let us begin with Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, and then Asatoma Satkamaya with our mics on mute. Let's make sure all our mics are on mute, and let's stand together. Om Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let us offer our pranams to the lotus feet of Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi and all the Sadgurus who illumine our paths. I would like to acknowledge the source of my inspiration for this and all the talks on Upadesha Saram in this series, to Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi, whose composition we are studying, to Sri Narasimha Prabhuji, who is guiding me on the path of self-inquiry, to Sri Shankaracharya and his lineage, who have brought Advaita Vedanta intact for all of us to study. At all their feet, I offer my gratitude and my reverence. May their grace and blessings pour down in great abundance and ignite the lamp of awareness within each one of us. turning on my earphones. So last time we had studied slokas 24 and 25. Let's chant those two slokas, very briefly visit what we had discussed, and then move on to the next slokas. Let's chant together, lead and repeat. ईशजीवयोर्वेषधिभिदा ईशजीवयोर्वेषधिभिदा तत्स्वभावतो वस्तु केवलम् तत्स्वभावतो वस्तु केवलम्. So here Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi is telling us with the jiva, that means each one of us who feel that we are individuals, and Ishvara, who is the creator of this entire cosmos. There is difference only with respect to the body or form and the intellect or awareness. As far as their essential nature is concerned, Bhagavan says, both are the same absolute reality. So last time, like Kiramji had said, we took up Hasra Shirsha Purushaha from the Purusha Suktam, and we understood that 1,000 heads, 1,000 eyes, 1,000 feet. 1,000 actually means innumerable. You cannot count. The universal being or the cosmic being or the creator has innumerable heads, eyes, feet, etc., etc. Okay? He is not different from us. This head, your head, my head, that is also counted among the 1,000 heads or innumerable heads. Our hands are his hands, our feet are his feet, our eyes are his eyes. So his form is made up of the entire cosmos. We had discussed some PowerPoint slides, which I'm not going to run through now. Just basically revisiting the main point. So as far as essential nature is concerned, there is a substratum, there is an adhara, and this adhara is the self. So both for Ishvara and for the jiva, the adhara is the same. There is no difference in the substratum. Jiva is an appearance on the substratum. Ishvara is an appearance on this substratum. So Bhagavan is saying the core, the essence of both is exactly the same. Then we had related this to our experience of deep sleep, waking, dream, etc. And as Janki Ram also reminded us when he was giving us the summary today, I is the witness that is constantly present. You are in a waking state, dream state, and deep sleep state. Otherwise, the entity of the waking state is very different from the entity in deep sleep and the entity in the dream. They're all mutually exclusive of each other. That which gives continuity to these three states and which makes each one of us feel, I am awake, I had a good sleep, I had such and such a dream. It is because of this I that runs through all the three beads. If you think that waking, deep sleep, and dream are three beads on a necklace, then I is the string that runs through all these beads. It is present all the time. The entity which I am aware of in the waking state is present only in the waking state. It is absent in deep sleep, absent in dream. The entity, the subtle body that appears in my dream state is absent in waking state and in deep sleep state. The formless, limitless, infinite, blissful, peaceful state of being in deep sleep seems to be having nothing, no thing, no object. There is only subject there. So that which links all three states is the I. When we wake up in the morning, all of us, we're sleeping, lying down on the bed. Maybe we had brought new bed sheets and bed covers for the bed, very, very pretty, goes so nicely with the rest of the room. We spread it, we were so excited to see how it looks. And then we lay down on that and went to sleep. Sleep, no body. My body is absent, my mind, my identity of waking state is absent, the bed sheets are absent, everything is gone. Then in the morning, I just become aware that I exist. The first stage of wakefulness. Unless somebody makes us, wakes us up with a start by shouting at us or something, there is a transition from sleep to wakefulness. So from a deep sleep state, when I'm transiting to wakeful state, first I become aware that I am, that I exist. That is the Ishvara state. Bhagavan calls that Ishvara state. So at that stage, I have not identified with the body, mind, and intellect as yet. I have not identified with my day-to-day personality. I just am aware that I exist. That's it. So this is all, actually it happens fast. We are breaking it up into segments so that we understand. Then this I am identifies with the body and it will say, I am the body. The minute it identifies and it becomes limited, that's called the jiva. So this is the definition of Ishvara and Jiva that Bhagavan has given us for the previous shloka. Now we'll come to the 25th shloka. We also covered last time. Veshahanatah svatmadarshanam Veshahanatah svatmadarshanam Ishadarshanam svatmarupatah Ishadarshanam svatmarupatah. So here Ramana is reminding us, when the various conditionings of body, mind, and identification with name and form are removed, they are shed, the self is realized. The vision of the Lord as the self is true self-realization. So other than this, everything else, even a vision where the Ishtadevata appears, where the form of Ishtadevata appears in front of us, or we hear the voice of the Ishtadevata, that is still a vision. It comes and goes. So even that is not the ultimate state. Bhagavan says, when you realize that God and self are one, and you are that self, that is called the state of self-realization. It is not, I should not use the word state, because this is your natural way of being. That is who you are. Now we come to shloka 26. That is our first shloka for today. Can all of you see? Are you able to see the shloka?
Yes, Vani, we can see it.
Because there was a kind of flicker, so I was just wondering. Thank you, Sadhani. So let's chant the 26th shloka. आत्मसंस्थितिः स्वात्मदर्शनम् आत्मसंस्थितिः स्वात्मदर्शनम् आत्मनिर्भयात् आत्मनिष्ठता आत्मनिर्भयात् आत्मनिष्ठता आत्मनिर्भयात्. The self is non-dual. So there are not two parts to the self. The seer and the seer. Vedanta calls that experience Triputi. There is the subject, there is the object, and there is the process of seeing. I and the object and the process of seeing. So these three are not three parts. The self is only the seer. The self is always the seer. There is no other entity to see the self. We have looked at this in so many previous shlokas. So I'm not going to go into it very deeply right now. During the rest of the talk, somewhere it will come. So it's very, very, very important for us to understand this one basic truth. What is that? The self is non-dual. Atma nirbhayat. So Atma samsthitihi, to be established in the self. Samsthitihi means to be established in the self or as the self. Swamadarshanam, that itself is seeing the self. There are no two things. So I cannot see the self because that is the subject. That is me. Atma is me. The self is me. Therefore, I cannot see the self as being separate from me. I can only be established as the self. Atma nishtata. This is abidance in the self. So, maybe somebody, one of you may have had this experience. Somebody came and some years ago, they came and spoke to me. And they said, I believe you teach in BS College as a visiting faculty. So, do you know somebody called Vani Vasudev who teaches there? That was a very funny thing to me. What answer do I give? Do I know Vani Vasudev? That means Vani Vasudev is separate from me. Don't I know Vani Vasudev then? Can I say I don't know? I can't even say I don't know. I can't even say I know. What's the answer I can give? I am Vani Vasudev. So I don't know Vani Vasudev, or it's not the state where I don't know Vani Vasudev also, but I am Vani Vasudev. So here also it's the same thing. You are the self. So since the self is non-dual, there are no two parts to the self. You are the self. Let's explore this a little more. Now, in Atma Bodha, there are the second, third, and fourth shlokas talk about the same point. Shankaracharya, who has authored Atma Bodha, in the second shloka he says, just as fire is the direct cause for cooking, knowledge is the direct cause for liberation. Compared to all other forms of knowledge or sadhana, compared to all other forms of sadhana, knowledge of the self is the one direct means to emancipation. So, if we just analyze this, now we do Karma Yoga. What do we do in Karma Yoga? Every action that we perform, we say, the fruit belongs to the Lord. I have no expectation from this action. Whatever fruit occurs to me or comes to me, or the result of this action, I offer at the feet of the Lord. And whatever He gives me or she gives me, I take it as prasad. I'm content with it. Taking it as prasad means I will not react. There will be no resistance within me. I worked so hard, I did this, I did that. Then, is this all I get for big amount of effort I put in? All that reaction is absent when I receive something as prasad. So I do karma yoga. And my chitta becomes pure, my mind becomes pure. Selfishness reduces, self-centeredness reduces. There is an expansiveness. I'm able to think about the well-being of everybody, not just my own comfort zone. So, there is Chitta Shuddhi. So, when Chitta Shuddhi happens, the Vedas say, start Upasana. What is Upasana? You begin to meditate on the Lord. Have an Ishta Devata or have a form, have a name, and you start focusing on that. One point focus. You get Chitta Ekagrata. You get the ability to concentrate. Is that self-realization? Is not. Is the Shuddhi self-realization? It is not. So after Upasana, what happens? Slowly we start realizing even Upasana is dependence on the other. Vedanta says the greatest sin is the sin of separation, the sin of duality. Suddenly you realize thinking that God is different and I am different is creating such a big problem for me. Thinking that I am different and others are different, that is creating all this problem for me. That is the cause for samsara. Therefore, I begin to think, I want to overcome, go beyond this separation, go beyond this split, this dichotomy, this duality. I want to transcend that. So I start self-inquiry. So Shankaracharya says, jnana, knowledge of the self, not knowledge of chemistry or physics or astronomy or architecture, but paravidya, the knowledge of the self, is the one direct means to emancipation. I can see that I am liberated only when I am established in myself, when I am aware all the time that that is my true nature. So in the third shloka, elaborating, Shankaracharya says, action cannot destroy ignorance. We think action can be anything. It can be karma yoga, it can be bhakti yoga, it can be rituals. Nobody is denying that it has an impact. Nobody is denying it has a role to play. But you cannot destroy ignorance through action because they are not opposed to each other. Immediately in the same shloka, an example is given. Truly, knowledge destroys ignorance, light destroys darkness. So for darkness to go in a room is very dark. Can I bring a bell and ring it? If I ring a bell in the room, will the darkness go away? Or if I bring a nice perfume into the room, the darkness go away? No, because sound and darkness are not opposed to each other. Fragrance and darkness are not opposed to each other. Only light and darkness are opposed to each other. So if I want the darkness to go away, I have to bring a light. When I bring the light, immediately the darkness is gone. In the same way, when the knowledge of our true nature or the knowledge of the self dawns within us, it has always been there. When we become aware of it, then automatically ignorance is destroyed. Your ignorance again means ignorance that I am the self, ignorance of my true nature. In the fourth sloka, Shankaracharya says, the self appears to be finite because of ignorance. When ignorance is destroyed, the self, which does not admit of any multiplicity, reveals itself by itself, like the sun when the clouds pass away. Now, we are all having rainy weather, right? Lots of clouds, quite chilly, intermittent rain now and then. Seeing sunlight has become a rarity over the past 2-3 days. Does that mean the sun doesn't exist? Has the sun disappeared? No, we all know that's not true. It's just that there's a cloud cover. The sun is hidden by the clouds. We are getting diffused daylight. As soon as the clouds are gone, we see that the sun was always there. We become aware of the sun. So in the same way, the self has always been our true nature, but when we become aware of the fact that that is who I am, then the clouds of ignorance vanish. So that is what Shankaracharya is saying here. In fact, there is a famous quote of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. He says, there may be a dark room, say in a ruined building, dilapidated building, all the windows are closed, doors are closed. Nobody has entered that room for maybe 100 years. That entire building is overgrown with ivy and brambles and weeds everywhere, thick vegetation surrounding it. Somebody suddenly discovers, what is a building here? And you go inside. And you open that room and you light a matchstick or immediately what happens? That darkness which has existed for more than 100 years just gone. So Ramakrishna Paramahamsa says, the darkness of centuries can be removed by one spark of light. So we may have been ignorant of our true nature since many, many incarnations. But the minute we become aware, I am the self, ignorance is gone. So what do we see in these photos? You may wonder, what have I done? Just put in Amitabh Bachchan in Upadesha Saram slide, right? To get parents, wife, children, grandchildren of some one person, this became an easy option for me. So in the top left-hand picture, we see Amitabh Bachchan with his parents. Then we see him with his wife Jaya Baduri. Then we see him with his son, daughter, daughter-in-law, son, daughter-in-law, and granddaughter. I'm sorry. So all of us, just put the photos of Amitabh Bachchan here. It could be our photo, right? It could be your photo with your parents, your photo with your spouse, your photo with your child, son or daughter, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, grandchild, whatever, friends, colleagues. We have so many roles. I'm a son or a daughter, I'm a spouse, I'm a father or mother, I'm a grandfather or grandmother, I'm a neighbor to somebody, I'm a professional, I have colleagues. All through the day, I play so many roles. I may be the boss, I may be the employee. But do we multiply because of these multiple roles? Do I become so many different people? In Rasa Leela, we see Krishna is dancing with every gopika. But in our life, what do we do? When my children were small, they're just 1.5 years apart, my daughters who are now grown up. When they were very small, both of them wanted my attention at the same time. I would say, I wish I could make a Xerox copy of myself. One mother attend to one child, another mother attend to another child. Is that possible? Same person, the person is the same, Vani or Sajni or Jankiram or Malti or any one of you. But your roles are different. Same way, the self is one. There are multiple creatures. We have multiple roles to play. That is true. In this cosmos, there is only one self, and the self is playing so many roles. Playing the role of an ant, the role of an elephant, the role of a human being, the role of a tree. But everything is one self. So for each role, there is not a different self. There is only one self. Similarly, we should not confuse the self with our roles in life. We have many roles, but we are one substratum. Now we have this story which Bhagwan was very fond of relating. Even the two stories that I related last time were actually narrated by Sri Ramana Maharshi himself. The story that I am relating now is a well-known story, also narrated by Sri Ramana Maharshi, in order to explain the point to disciples. So in this story, there is Sant Namdev. We have heard of him. Sant Namdev, very, very famous saint of North India. Very famous saint of North India. He was a great devotee of Lord Vithala, also as Vithoba. Vithoba, he would every day go to the temple of Vithoba, and he would actually talk to the Lord in the temple. He would have conversations with Vithoba, very intimate relationship. So as this went on over time, Vithoba, a sort of sense of ego started developing in him. I can talk to the Lord. Most people can't. So the sense of superiority. So there was a gathering, and in this gathering, all the devotees of Vithoba are there. At the top, you see there is Ghora Kumhar. He was a potter. He was also there. So Gnandev was also a very famous saint. He was present in that gathering. He told, all of them were sitting together, meditating. So Gnandev told Gora Kumhar, you know, when you bake your pots, you normally check whether they are nicely baked. What do? You have a stick, right? And with that stick, you tap each pot. And by the sound that that pot gives, you know whether it is fully baked or not. So here, we're all gathered, we're all devotees of Vithoba. Are all of us mature? Are all of us fully baked? Are we jnanis? Take your stick and tap everybody's head and find out. So this seemed like a very strange thing. The play of Lord Vithoba himself. So Gora said, are you sure? You're all such big jnanis. I'm just a humble potter. I don't have any scriptural knowledge. I only am overflowing with devotion for the Lord, but compared to all of you, I'm nowhere. And Jnandev said, no, come on, do it. So all of them are sitting, their eyes are closed, meditating. And Gora Kumhar comes with that stick and he taps everybody's head, he starts tapping. Everybody is quiet, they allow him to do it. But when he comes to Namdev, Namdev says, no, don't do it. Everybody, no, you have to. All of us went through it, didn't we? So Kumhar Gora taps him and says, all the pots are sound except this one. Only Namdev, he is not yet a jnani. Everybody else is a jnani. So Namdev is very angry, he is very upset, he is agitated. He runs to the temple of Vithala and he says, Vithoba, what is this? Is this how you take care of me? See how badly I've been humiliated. I am such a great devotee of yours. I talk to you with great ease whenever I want. And that Gora, that potter, he said, I am not yet a jnani. So Vithoba smiles very mischievously and he says, he's right. You're so dependent on my form. You're so dependent on my name. You have to move on. You need a Sadguru. You need the teachings from a Sadguru so that you can move on to the stage of Nirantara. Go into the forest. Can you see? There's a big forest there. Go into that forest and you will find an old temple. In that temple, you will find your Guru. Go and take his Upadesha. So Namdev immediately goes into the forest. He keeps walking and he comes to a temple. He goes into the temple. He sees an old man, very old, very weak. He's fast asleep and his feet are resting on a Shivalinga, a linga of Shiva. And Namdev is shocked. He says, what a sacrilege. This man is just lying there and putting his feet on Lord Shiva and sleeping. Is this how a jnani, what a jnani does? And he goes and loudly wakes up that man. Hey, get up. Man gets up with a start and he says, oh, what happened? What happened? No, Grandpa, your feet are on the Shivalinga. Just put them somewhere else. Man says, oh, I am very weak. Better you move my feet. So Namdev holds the feet of this old man and he moves his feet away from the Shivalinga and rests it on the floor. Immediately, what happens? Most of us know this story, right? What happens when the feet touch the ground? Another Shivlinga springs up below it. So Namdev goes on, another place, another place, another place, another place. Every time, as soon as this old man's feet touches the ground, a Shivlinga springs up. Namdev is exhausted. And says, you are no ordinary being. I was deluded. Tell me, who are you? Then this sage, whose name was Visobha Khechar, he says, you need to understand that God is everywhere. Wherever I put my feet, you saw the Shivlinga. But that was only for you to understand. In actuality, in every atom, in every cell, in every creature, in every object, there is only the self, there is only God. So you are attached to only one form of God, Vitoba. Even other forms, you don't have devotion. But you have to go beyond the form. That's what Vitoba wants. He wants you to understand that God is everywhere all the time. That even you, within you also, there is the same God. They were right. Had been doing sadhana for such a long time. He was ready for this teaching. As soon as he received it, his awareness got ignited. He said that there are three types of devotees. Some devotees are like wet wood. You go on lighting, it keeps going out. Some devotees are like charcoal. It's difficult to light, but once you light and you have to keep fanning, fire stays. Some devotees or disciples are like gunpowder. They're ready. One small spark falls on it, it explodes. Ramdev was like that. He was ready. As soon as the jnana came, he understood. Then he went back home. And he didn't go to the temple for days. Never used to happen. Several times he used to go to Vithoba's temple every day, but he has not gone for many, many days. Then Vithoba appears in his house and he says, Namdev, why didn't you come? I have been waiting for you in the temple for so many days. Why are you simply sitting at home? Namdev laughs and he says, Vithoba, don't play your games with me anymore. I know that you are everywhere all the time. Now I am you are. They are not different from each other. I have great reverence for your form, but at the same time, I know that I am not separate from you. I know that in essence, we are the same, and that you are everywhere, in every being. Whether I come to the temple or not, I can go on. I don't feel that sense of separation from you at all anymore. So how many parts does the self have? The story tells us very clearly, self is not dual. The journey to the self, there is duality. But once you are established in the self, there is no duality. So Shloka 27. Jnanavarjita jnanahina chet ज्ञानवर्जिता अज्ञानहीन चेत् ज्ञानमस्ति किं ज्ञातुमन्तरम् ज्ञानमस्ति किं ज्ञातुमन्तरम्. So jnana varjita. Jnana is knowledge. Varjita, devoid of knowledge. The self is devoid of knowledge. Ajnanahina. Chit is consciousness or self. Chit is jnana varjita. Chit is ajnanahina. Hina means not there. So the consciousness has neither knowledge nor ignorance. Beyond both knowledge and ignorance. Bhagavan is saying, Jnanam asti kim? What knowledge or what instrument of knowing is there? Asti, exists. Kim? What? Jnanam asti kim? What instrument of knowledge exists? Jnatum antaram, other than the self itself, to know the self. So what apparatus do you have? To each one of us, what apparatus do we have which can know the self? In other words, Bhagavan is saying, there is no apparatus to know self. During the last talk, also we saw the last sphere. For an object, the eyes are the sphere. For the eyes, the mind is the sphere. For the mind, the self is the sphere. For the self, there is no other sphere. We have reached the end point. So there is no other apparatus or no other sphere to know the self. Consciousness has neither knowledge nor ignorance. So this is what Bhagavan is saying in this sloka. From the Ishavasya Upanishad, we have sloka 6. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmanyeva anupashyati sarva bhuteshu cha atmanam tato na viju gupsate. The effulgence of infinite consciousness shines bright and pervades everywhere. It pervades everything and everywhere. Be that. Realize the self by the self in the self. Duality and hatred vanish just like the horns of a hare. So the central line, be that, is the gist of the entire shloka. Even the previous shloka and this shloka. Because the self is everywhere and it illumines everything, it is only by the light of the self that we can see everything. But self does not need any other light. It is self-effulgent. And because we are the self, all that needs to be done is to be the self. That's all. So by being the self, we realize our true nature. Realize the self by the self in the self. The minute duality, when we are established in the true nature, duality is gone. Just like for Namdev, it disappeared. Hatred also disappears. Hatred comes only because of separateness. We feel we are separate from somebody else. So we have no empathy. If that person is very different from us, if that person does things which we don't agree with, we may hate that person. But if we are established in the self, that person is not different from us. He is also a manifestation of the self. So just like the horns of a hare is a kind of rabbit, right? So does a rabbit or a hare have horns? A cow has horns, a buffalo has horns, a deer has antlers. But a hare does not have horns. So this shloka is saying, if you had thought at some point of time that the hare has horns, and suddenly you realize it does not have horns, but it never had horns. So in the same way, you or we, all of us, we think that duality exists, we think that separation exists, we think that there is a three-way split, I, the world, and God. But the minute I realize I am the self, this three-way split disappears. There is no duality, there is no triad. Also, there can be no ill will towards anybody because they're all a part of my own being. They're a manifestation of the self. So these are photo images taken by NASA. We see the sun on the left side, very, very effulgent. Of course, this would not be representing the actual effulgence of the sun. That would be far greater, something we can't even look at. Then we have another image. We have the earth. Looks really beautiful with its shades of blue and green and brown and pinkish. Then we have moon. Can you see there's a tiny moon just to the right of the earth? So the sun, moon and the earth and the moon, they are reflecting the light of the sun. But the sun itself is self-effulgent. Just by the presence of the sun, everything happens. The plants photosynthesize, creatures move around by the light of the sun, water evaporates from the oceans and the water bodies and rivers and lakes, and clouds form and rain falls. So many things keep happening. Our body produces vitamin D. Without the presence of the sun, if the sun were to die, all of us cannot exist without the sun. We cannot exist even for a few moments or a few seconds. Life will become extinct on Earth. So, does the sun come and do all these activities? The sun doesn't do anything. So, Bhagavan is saying, just by the presence of the sun, everything happens. The sun is not the doer, but his presence is required for everything to happen. Its illumination is required for other things to exist. The self is there, self is effulgent on its own, but entire creation exists because of the self. Whether creation exists or not, the self continues to exist. Who will see whom? Who illumines whom? The sun cannot see itself because the sun is light. So the self is the knowing principle. The self is awareness. In the presence of the knowing principle, knowledge manifests. But knowing principle is beyond knowledge and ignorance. That is what we are understanding from the shloka. So this is a very, very important truth that we are learning today. Bhagavan is hammering it into us. He's saying you cannot see the self, you cannot know the self, you can only be the self. So self-knowledge or self-realization is being the self. Because there is no duality, you cannot see or know the self, you are the self. We have this very well-known story from the Puranas, the story of Ganesh and Subramanya. One day, Lord Narada comes to Kailas, where Shiva and Parvati are sitting. Narada brings a golden fruit and he gives it to Shiva. And he says, "This is for you." Shiva is about to cut the fruit into 4 parts. Then Narada says, "No, no, no, no. Lord Shiva, don't cut it. This is the fruit of Jnana. It has to be eaten whole. Self has no divisions, right? So the fruit of knowledge cannot be cut. You have to eat it whole. Only one person, you can give it to one person. So at that time, Subramanya and Ganesha both run up and this is the fruit. And they say, I want it, I want it, I want it. And Narada is very mischievous. He says, to whom will you give it now? Parvati doesn't want to be, she doesn't want to play favorites. Shiva doesn't want to play favorites. So Lord Shiva thinks, let me pass the buck to Narada. So he looks at Narada and he says, you decide. You decide who should eat this fruit. It be Ganesha or Subramanya. So Narada is now in a dilemma. So he says, I'll have a competition. The winner of the competition will get it. You have to go and circumambulate the world 3 times. Go around the world thrice and come back. Whoever comes first will get the fruit. As soon as he said that, the words are just out of his mouth immediately. Muruga or Subramanya is on his peacock and he is off. Now Ganesha's Vahana is the mouse. Mouse cannot move as fast as the peacock. Peacock can just fly all around. So Ganesha is standing there and Narada is saying, come on, Subramanya is already gone. You want to be in the competition or not? So Ganesha says, yes, I'm just thinking. The time he's thinking, Subramanya has finished 1 round. Ganesha, I finished 1 round. You've not even started. Ganesha is still there. He's thinking. Subramanya comes 2nd round over. He's in his 3rd round. So then Ganesha goes up to his parents, Shiva and Parvati, and we know what he did, right? He just walked around. In the picture, 3rd picture, we see him cutely walking around both of them. So he goes around them 3 times and he prostrates, and Shiva and Parvati pretend not to know what he is doing. So they say, what are you doing, Ganesha? Of going around the world, why are you going around us? So then Ganesha says, the world is in you. Shiva is the self, Parvati is Prakriti. The world is in you. Why should I go around earth? Let me just go around you. That is enough. They are very impressed and they give him the fruit. He's eating the fruit. He's almost finished eating the fruit when Subramanya comes back and he says, I am the winner, give me the fruit. Then all explanations are made to him and Ganesha is the winner of the competition. So there is an important symbolism here. When we go to a temple, we say we have to do pradakshina. We go around the temple 3 times. Around what are we doing pradakshina? It is Atma Tattva, our own self. When we do namaskara, what do? We just turn around, right? We hold our hands like this and we just turn around 3 times. Then we prostrate. Why are we turning around? We are the self. It is Atma Namaskara. It is Atma Pradakshina. But we just mechanically do it. We have even lost sight of the symbolism. Say, if a child is coming and doing Namaskaram, we tell that child, don't you know you have to turn around 3 times? Don't just do Namaskaram like that. Turn around 3 times. Why? Just do it. That is how you do Namaskaram, don't you know? Actually, there is a wonderful symbolism behind it. We turn around 3 times so that we can be the awareness that I am the self. I am not body, mind, and intellect. Infinity is my nature. Peace is my nature. Bliss is my nature. Love is my nature. So I just have to indicate that I turn around just like the earth rotates around its axis. We rotate around our axis 3 times. I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not the intellect. 3 times we rotate and then we do Namaskara. Namaskara to whom? To the self. Any form that we bow down to, any deity, any Ishtadevata, whatever we respect or revere, it is still the self. So that is very important for us to remember. We go to a temple, turn around, go 3 times around the temple. Yes, the deity is there. Deity is very important, but the deity is also the self. So remember that we come inside, we turn around 3 times and we do Namaskara. Everything is the self, Pradakshina. Everything is the self, Atma Namaskara. I am the self. When doing Atma Namaskara, you are saying, I am the self. Then I've seen many people, they say if you go to the temple or a place of worship, you have to sit there. So they say, no, for 1 minute at least, just sit on the steps somewhere. 1 minute. ಕೂತಿದ್ದು ಶಾಸ್ತ್ರ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳೋದಾದ್ರೆ. So sit for a minute, then go. But what is the meaning of that? Be established in the self. You have come to the temple for what? To remember your true nature. You have even done Atma Namaskara. Then immediately, that means don't go back. Remain established. Don't slip back. Slip back to the state of duality. It will create all these problems for you, which will bring frustration, anger, irritation, hatred, or even loneliness or depression. I am separate from other people. I am separate from God. Don't slip back into the state of separateness, into the state of individuality. Remain there, remain in the state of awareness. So they say sit down for some time. It means to be established in the self, to be the self. Then go and play roles, but always be the self. So that's what this wonderful Purana story is telling us. So today we are going to look at a few incidents from Devaraja Mudalayar's life. He was a long-time devotee of Bhagwan. It is said that he had gone to Bhagwan once, and then after a very long period he came to Bhagwan, came to visit Bhagwan. So when he stood in front of him, immediately Ramana Maharshi said, "Oh, here is Devraj Mudalayar. He had come 20 years ago." So everybody was shocked. But that happened frequently with Bhagwan. And then Devraj Mudalayar spoke to Muruganar, another wonderful devotee of Bhagwan. And then Muruganar said,
a jnani is like a mirror. Anyone who stands in front of him, anyone who comes into his presence is reflected. It is not that he has a phenomenal memory, he has to recall. It is instantaneous for a jnani. To come, he accepts everybody. Everybody is a manifestation of the self. There is nobody whom he does not know. No one is a stranger to the jnani. So, Devraj Mudaliar was an advocate. And by nature, he says, I was an atheist. I didn't really believe in God. I didn't go to temples. I didn't believe in rituals. So one day, I told Bhagwan, Bhagwan, this is my state. So what should I do? He used to visit Bhagwan and go back. He didn't live in Tiruvannamalai at that time. So Bhagwan said, it's all right. No, there's nothing wrong with that. God is always within you. Turn your mind inward. Meditate on awareness. That means become aware of the sakshi, become aware of the witness, or the seer. That is enough. And many times, as Mudaliar, he was in a state of surrender to Bhagwan. When he wrote letters, many devotees and disciples would write letters to the ashram or to Bhagwan. And when Devraj Mudaliar wrote, he would address Bhagwan as Ammayappa, one who is my mother, father. So he was like a small child. Whatever Bhagwan told him, he would follow in a state of surrender. So when difficulties came to him, he would pray to Bhagwan, because that was, faith was in Bhagwan more than anything else. So he would pray to Bhagwan and he would ask for release from that difficulty. And he went to Bhagwan and one day told him, Bhagwan, for me, you are God, I pray to you. Then Ramana said, it is good. Pray with surrender, offer the prayer. Then surrender means after that, you should just be. You should not worry. Will my prayer be granted or not? And suppose whatever you wanted did not happen. Don't start thinking, why was not my prayer granted? Bhagwan has no grace or what? Or Bhagwan is not, he doesn't like me or he doesn't love me. Don't start doing all that analysis. Pray, let go. That is surrender. Whether your prayer is answered or not is not your concern. You have applied, you just let it go. And during those days, even now, if you go to Ramanashram and you eat in the dining hall, the main staple food is rice. Quantities of rice are served. It so happened that Devraj Mudaliar was very allergic to rice. And his doctor had told him to eat only chapatis, not rice. So he could not, one day he came to the ashram at meal time. Everybody went into the dining hall to eat. Only Devraj didn't go. Bhagwan looked around, who all are there. And then he said, where is Devraj Mudaliar? So immediately somebody went to fetch him. He said, Bhagwan is calling you. So Devraj came and Bhagwan said, sit. He said it so forcefully. A leaf was there. Banana leaf was waiting for him. He had to sit. He sat down. So rice is being served. A large amount was served on his leaf also. And looked at questioningly at Bhagwan. In his mind, he is thinking, if I eat this, I don't know what will happen to me. So much rice, so allergic to it. Bhagwan just said, eat. He sat and ate. And he said, from that moment, my allergy disappeared. There were many lawsuits against the ashram. He had looked at that also. Perumal Swami, who was a manager at one time in the ashram, when he became too autocratic and he was asked to step down and someone else was made the manager. Swami, Bhagwan's brother, was made the manager. He became very angry and he went and put lawsuits in the court saying, I have another ashram that is actually Ramana ashram. This ashram is not Ramana ashram. So all kinds of things he cooked up and he put lawsuits. And these lawsuits were really bothering the ashram. Then Devraj Mudalayar, he worked to get these lawsuits dismissed and he helped the ashram a lot. And he was sitting, after all that was over, sitting with Bhagwan, and he said, Bhagwan, this concept of karma, that karma is predestined, how does that make sense? So Bhagwan said, yes, it is predestined, but there is one freedom. The only freedom which each one of us has, which man or woman have, is to strive for and acquire Atmajnana, so that you no longer identify with the body. If you free yourself from body identification, that is the only freedom. Other things are only apparent freedom. You feel I have free will, but in actuality, you don't even know what is going to happen the next moment. Right now, with the COVID situation, all of us are experiencing. Our lives have turned topsy-turvy. Everything has changed. We have no control over so many things, and we are realizing it. That illusion, that bubble in which we were living, thinking, I have so much free will, that bubble has really shrunk in size. It has not gone away, but it shrunk in size. So Bhagwan is saying, if you want to be really free, that freedom is internal. You stop identifying with the body. Body means all the panchakoshas. Then whatever happens to any of them is not happening to you. You are free. So this is the only way in which you can get freedom from karma. Then after Bhagwan passed away, Devraj Mudalayar had moved into the ashram and he was living there. He lived there for a long time. Even after Bhagwan passed away, he was there. And towards the end of his days, his relatives came and felt that because he's becoming old, it's better if he's taken care of by the family. And they took him away from Tiruvannamalai. In Shiva Purana, there is a promise. Shiva Purana says that Lord Shiva has said that anyone who lives within 3 yojanas, that means something like a 30-mile radius around Arunachala, they will all get liberation or mukti. So this had been often questioned by Devraj Mudalayar. He had asked Bhagwan, how can that be without doing sadhana, without anything, how can they get mukti? So Bhagwan had said, see, it is there in the Purana. It is a promise made by Lord Shiva. Question, just leave it there. But Arunachala is really, it is a very powerful presence. It is nothing but a representation of your own self. So very deeply Devraj Mudaliar was attached to Arunachala. As long as he could, he would do the entire circuit around Arunachala whenever he could. That means 14-kilometer pradakshina around the hill. So when he was taken away, everybody wondered, how will he manage? Gone there, somewhere far away from Tiruvannamalai. But when he was asked, don't you miss Arunachala? Don't you miss being in the ashram? He said, wherever the feeling of I am is present, there is Arunachala, there is Ramana. So Ramana or Arunachala is not a place. It is a true state of being. It is my own self. So this was what he learned and he understood and how he became established in his own self. So the very important point that we have learned is, for the self there is neither ignorance nor knowledge. Self is beyond both. Self is awareness. Self is the knowing principle. There is no duality in the self. You cannot see the self. You cannot know the self. You can only be the self. At this very moment, you are the self. So that is what Bhagavan is telling us with these two shlokas. I'll just come out of the presentation, and if there are any questions, we'll take some questions, and we will meditate also. So how do we, not seeing the messages here today. Okay. It's already open. No. How do I open the chat? Okay. Katyayani says, thank you, Vaniji, for being an anchor to our inward journey. Simple, straightforward, beautiful. Okay, thank you. Padmi says, this question is not directly related to the shlokas, but a general one. This can be answered after more directly related questions have been answered. Why has man fallen from God's grace? What cardinal sin have we committed to have caused this downfall? Okay. So the sin is only wrong identification. That is all. So right now, it's extremely simple. Sin is a strong word to use actually. But if we do use it, then all our problems are coming only from one thing, that is wrong identification with the body, mind, and intellect. Thinking that I am separate from others, I am separate from God, that is the only thing. Grace is always there. We are never fallen from grace. We are the self. God is not different from us. God and self are one. I and self are one. The very fact that instead of identifying with my true nature, I'm identifying with that which is not my true nature. Call it anatma, just for clarity. In fact, everything is a manifestation of the self. But there is a particular route which makes it easy, given by Vedanta. Neti, neti, not this, not this. So first I say, I'm not this body, I'm not this mind, I'm not this intellect. And then when I'm established in the self, there is nothing that is not the self. Iti, iti, iti. This too is the self, this too is the self, this too is the self. So when I look at something thinking this is not me. There the problem arises. For a jnani, everything is part of his own self. Everything is a manifestation of his own self. So all that is required is a simple switch, internal switch. Let go of the identity from body, mind, intellect. Identify with the infinite which you are. Let go of the finite. Infinite remains. You don't have to do anything else. You don't even have to identify with that. If you let go of this, the iti is automatic. Only the neti you have to put in effort. And when Bhagavan was asked to get grace, he laughed and he said, grace and effort are not different. When you feel that, when you get the motivation, you must understand my true nature. That is grace. When you start working towards it, you go to satsang, you do shravana, you do manana, you do nididhyasa, you think over, you contemplate, you meditate. All the effort you put in, it is grace. Everything is grace. So there is no separation. This is grace, this is effort, this is grace. Every effort is also grace. And the favorable circumstances which make it happen. Person who will come to guide you, a guru who comes to guide you, I should not call him person, I should say Sadguru, he or she. That is also grace. So grace manifests inside as motivation, as effort, as shraddha. And from outside it manifests as favorable circumstances, as a Sadguru coming, as fellow sadhaks all around you. So grace works from inside, grace works from outside. And there is no fall from grace. The only fall from grace is the delusion. I'm different. I'm separate. That's all. And how to come out of that grace is also simple. You just let go of it. It's over. You can recover from the fall. There is no fall. You need to let go of the wrong identity. What did Ramana Maharshi say about the yugas and its influence on people? I really don't have much idea about it, whether he said anything about the yugas. I will have to look and then get back to you. Does our consciousness arise from the interaction of the body and mind, or is it unattached from the body or mind? And how does the consciousness arise? Are you referring to the consciousness that arises from body and mind as ego self? This is from Anu. So, Anu, consciousness is, it does not arise. Consciousness is there all the time. That is the only permanent thing. Body and mind exist in consciousness. Consciousness doesn't exist in body and mind. Body and mind, the entire world, the entire cosmos, that exists in consciousness. So we did the I am. We have been doing I am meditation many times. Today also we will be doing it. So when you do the I am meditation, you are actually, that is a state of consciousness. That is a state of witnessing. That is what we call consciousness or awareness. That is what we are referring to. Ego is nothing but consciousness identifies with the body. Mind. The thought that body and mind is the ego. From this thought, which limits you and separates you from everything else, will flow all other things generally attached. We think of, with associated, like anger, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, the 6 vices, attachment, greed, anger, uh, lust, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, envy. All that comes because I feel I'm separate. I feel I'm separate from somebody, so I have expectations. They should behave in this way. Expectations are not met, I get angry. That person prospers more than me, I'm envious. I don't want what he has, I'm greedy. Some opportunity comes out of me, I become greedy or lustful. Life is treating me very well, I get mada or become arrogant. But all that is coming only from the main problem, the root thought. What is the root thought? Wrong. So that wrong identity, the thought of I am BMI, that is from which all other branches come out. That is the mother root, and that has to be removed. Consciousness, if you are right now, you are aware that you exist, that is you exist, you are aware that you exist, that is Satya. Was that clear? Please ignore my last message. I don't know what it was. Sorry, how do we see this world not separate from Brahman? You go on doing Shravana, Manana, Nitithyasa, basically. Listen, read, contemplate. You have to convince the intellect. Ramana says, all that needs to be done is convince the intellect. It is the intellect that has this notion of wrong identity. It is the one that believes I am the body, mind, and intellect. So more and more we listen to talks, more and more we read books, and then contemplate on it. So every time something comes up, for instance, somebody is being rude to me, I'm getting angry. Maybe momentum of the vasana may be greater at the time. I may retort, or I may suppress, I may be nice, but I start boiling inside. What do? That incident is over. I've moved on to the next task, but my mind has not moved on. My hands are performing the task. My eyes are performing the task. I may be typing the right things on the computer. I may be doing the right things, but inside my mind is boiling. What can I do? Who is angry? I am angry. Who am I? Silence. That is who you are. So to keep coming back between tasks, I keep saying, go to I am state, go back to I am. Even with your eyes open, you can go to I am. And when you hear about other people's difficulties, wherever we tend to be judgmental, we tend to be critical of others, maybe their faults, maybe their behavior, maybe their attitude, and ask, keep asking, why? Who is critical? Who am I? Is that person different from me? So one of the parameters of progress on the path, which Sri Prabhuji has told me, is it is not how well you're able to talk about somebody's teachings or how well you have understood. One of the parameters is your likes and dislikes, your criticism and judgmental, the tendency to be judgmental about others, that comes down. The more you understand inside, the more it comes down. So develop more empathy. towards other people, and keep going back to your inner state of being whenever you can, whenever you can. Don't think it has to be done only in Brahma Muhurta, only have to sit for that, everything should be quiet, everything should be conducive. Yes, it's good if it is. But through the day, after a dedicated session, through the day, go back. If there is a field of grass, you keep on walking across. What happens? There is a track where grass doesn't grow. In the same way, you keep going back to the self, you become more and more, your frequency switches to that, and it starts automatically, Vairagya will come. It's not that forcibly you give up something, but automatically Vairagya from I am BMI will start. Slowly will start. So I hope that was helpful. Start with those who are near and dear, because that's the most difficult from my experience. Yeah, that's good. If everything is predestined and the only choice we have is in the way we respond, but then could be also predestined, is free will an illusion? Free will as we think of it is an illusion, is what Bhagavan is saying. The feeling that I can pick and choose what I want to do, that is also coming from vasanas. We have dealt with this when we did Karma Yoga part of the series, but I'm just going to very quickly go into it. Karma works in two ways, Bhagavan says. One way is outer circumstances, relationships, the people who are in our life, where we are born, etc., everything that happens around us. The second is the vasanas that are inside us. So I think I'm making a choice that I'm going to drink coffee instead of tea or Pepsi or something. It is the vasana inside me. From so many years or maybe even lifetimes, I have developed certain likes and dislikes. Vasanas are nothing but these likes and dislikes. I like this, I don't like this. I become envious, I don't become envious. I become angry, I don't become angry. All those are vasanas. So that is actually making the choices from inside. And from outside, karma is manifesting as circumstances, relationships, abundance, lack of abundance, health, ill health, whatever. So when these two are working together in tandem, one from inside, one from outside, there is a feeling that I have free will, but that feeling is an illusion because it is being, it's only prompts from your vasanas, it's your conditioning that is most of the time coming into play. So the actual free will is zero unless you are disidentified from your BMI, is what Bhagavan says. That is the free will. What is the true free will? I can either identify with the BMI or I can let go of that identity. If I let go of that identity, there are no vasanas working from inside. I am always peaceful. It's the vasanas which disrupt my peace, disrupt my bliss, disrupt the free flow of love towards everybody, disrupt that feeling of infinite being. And when these vasanas are gone, they will go because they are in the mind. If I disidentify from the mind, vasanas have no role to play. I disidentify from the body. Whatever happens to the body, I know is not happening to me. So I am free inside. So that is true free will, Bhagavan says. That doesn't mean we don't continue to do our duties, we don't continue to do what we need to do. That keeps happening. But inside, the peace and bliss, feeling of infinitude, feeling of belongingness, that everything is the self, that is undisturbed, undisrupted. So that is what Bhagavan says about karma and free will. that is also predestined. Yes, if you, for everybody, self-knowledge is predestined. Sometime or the other, we are going there, all of us. When will it happen? When we put in effort. When we put in effort, we receive grace from inside and out. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas combination in a person influences destiny and free will. See, Maya Shakti or delusion works through Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. It works through these three qualities. So what Vedanta tells us is, Tamas means it is more self-centeredness. I'm worried more about my own comfort zone. I have a lot of resistance to change. I don't want to change anything. I'm very rigid. I'm very self-centered. I don't mind troubling others for my comfort. So that is the quality of Tamas. Rajas, quality of Rajas, I am ready to do something for you as long as you do something for me. I am more restless. I keep switching from one thing to another thing to another thing. I am full of energy. I'm full of ambitions. I'm full of aspirations. I want to achieve so many things. So that is Rajas. Sattva. Sattva is very, very close to, it is the launching pad for self-knowledge. Mind has to come to a state of Sattva. In Sattva, I am thinking of others' needs more than I'm thinking of my needs. Very, very selfless, very, very expansive. But still that identity with BMI is there. A certain feeling of doership is still there. So that also has to be let go of. That's why a jnani is called Trigunatita. He's beyond these three gunas. Is established in the absolute. Maya is the relative, and it is in the relative that three gunas work. So if you are in Sattva, naturally you will be doing selfless acts. So whatever karma you sow will be very good, very pleasant. Rajas may go either way. Tamas normally will be negative karma. So in which frequency do we function? All of us, we function in all three. So in which do we function most? And then slowly to which do we transit to Sattva more and more and more? So that helps us to go closer to self-knowledge, and that is the launching pad for self-inquiry. So I think we are done with the questions. Don't seem to be any more. Is meditation the only way to soul consciousness? There is nothing, we don't use the word soul much in Sanatana Dharma. Your true nature or self. Meditation here, Vedanta recommends Nididhyasa. So Nididhyasa, Nidhi means treasure. Dhyasa means protecting. Right now we have heard what Bhagavan says about the self. Every session we hear what he says about the self. When we read a book by Ramana or by Nisargadatta Maharaj or Vedanta or an Upanishad, we read about the self. Self is our own true nature. So as soon as that knowledge comes and we understand, take that knowledge, not letting it slip away. What do we do most of the time? I used to do it some years ago very much. Listen in the satsang. Satsang is very nice. I have understood. I walk out, and life starts happening to me again. I forget. I let go of that awareness. But Nididhyasa means stay centered in that awareness. Even when life is happening, when life is throwing things at you, good things, bad things, stay centered in the awareness of your true nature. I am bliss, I am peace, I am infinity. So that is what Vedanta says is meditation. Even when I sit for meditation, all of us talking about, even when we sit for meditation, it is good to read a shloka or recall a shloka with the full meaning, understand it, because each time we need to remember again, we forget. When it takes over, we forget. So I sit for meditation today, I think of a shloka. Atmanivaya, one phrase. The self is non-dual. I sit. Protect. I sit in that state of awareness. I don't let go of that. That is nididhyasa. That is meditation. Focusing on the subject is meditation. Three things you said, ma'am. First one I do not remember. Second is read book. Last is contemplation. Could you please tell us first one? Shravana. Shravana is given the prime place. Actually, Shravana Matrena Mukti. If you hear wisdom from a Sadguru, that is Shravana. It has a special power because it is coming from a Jnani who is already established in the self. So when he tells you Tattvamasi, you are that, and then you sit, Aham Brahmasmi, I am the self. That is contemplation. Tattvamasi, I am the self, I am the self. And then nididhyasa, I sit in that state of awareness. I safeguard it. An awareness is blazing inside me because of what I have heard from my Sadguru and what I have contemplated about it. All my belief systems, which I thought were very valid, I have examined them in the light of my Sadguru's teachings, and I have discarded those which were invalid in that light. Very personal. Manana is very personal. It's not an abstract thing. Everything that is in my head, I examine in that light. An old, you are talking about that centuries old room where nobody has entered, right? If I bring in a light there, I see cobwebs, I see dust, I see everything. And then what do? Because I see it, I clean it up. So here, I let go. I'm so attached to so many beliefs, but they're not valid. They were valid at one point of time, but in the light of the self-knowledge, in the light of Advaita Vedanta, they're no longer valid. So I let go, I let go, I let go. That is manana. And then I sit and I let go. I'm in a state of infinite beatitude. I stay there. That is nididhyasa. Like what happened to Nisargadatta from his guru. Yes. He heard it from his guru, but he had a cigarette bidi shop. So in between serving customers, there is a small gap. In that gap, he would say, who am I? I'm not the body, mind, and intellect. Who am I? Non-stop self-inquiry. He didn't complain. I have to earn my living. I have to sit in my shop for 12 hours a day. How can I do sadhana? His life became self-inquiry. His life became sadhana. Can we do yoga nidra to attain it? Nididhyasa is not yoga nidra. Yoga nidra is a state of deep relaxation. Nididhyasa is very, very conscious state of being where you are aware that you are not the body, mind, and intellect, and you are the self. You keep going back to that. So for that self-inquiry, Bhagavan has given us, who am I? If your mind wanders and a thought comes, again you say, for whom is the thought? It is for me. Who am I? Mind is quiet. That is your true nature. That is nididhyasa. Be there. another thought comes. If it comes up, do the same thing again. Nididhyasa. So you're protecting what you have heard and understood. That is nididhyasa. So I think we will wind up the questions now. Can we all sit with our spine straight for a few minutes, eyes slightly closed? With your eyes closed, become aware of I am. I exist. I know that I exist. A very, very familiar, a direct experience. Every moment you feel it, just be that I am. Be there. You are infinite. You are bliss. You are peace. You are. If a thought arises, ask for whom is this thought? Is for me. Who am I? Takes you back to I am state. Or non-verbally, just shift your attention from the thought to who is aware of the thought. There is a witness who is aware of the thought. Just shift your attention to the witness. There are no thoughts. See, enjoy. Let us offer our pranam, the lotus feet of Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi for his wonderful wisdom. May his grace be with us. May the awareness that he has ignited remain with us and establish us in the self. Whenever you feel like it, slowly open your eyes. Even with eyes open, remain in the I am. We have 3 more shlokas which I will be completing next week. And the week after that, we will have a meditation workshop. It will be the last session in this series. I thank all of you for being with me in this exploration. Thank you so much. Over to Malati.
Today, Vani, you covered shlokas 26 and 27, and we were able to understand the main aspects which were highlighted in these shlokas, mainly how many parts does the self have, who was whom and who talks to who knows whom, and for one established in the self, what are knowledge and ignorance. So, on behalf of the organizers, the participants, and myself, I wish to thank you very much, dear Vani. It was a delight as usual. We look forward to you and your session next week, Saturday at 6 p.m. I hope many more will attend this program. Please watch out in the School of Ancient Wisdom WhatsApp, where you'll get the details of the link and so on. In the meantime, I would like to announce tomorrow's program, which would be done by Mr. Krishnapani, and he will be starting a new series called Atma Bodha, and the first of the series will be at 10 a.m. Indian Standard Time. And the next thing that I want to tell you is that on the 17th, which is a Thursday, we'll be having our regular satsang. And this time we have Dr. Yugandhra, who will be speaking on a very interesting subject called how to get centered. Those of you who would like to join, please join the satsang on Thursday at 6:30. Again, all details of how to get onto this Cisco WebEx will be put out on the WhatsApp of the School of Ancient Wisdom. So, thank you very much. I will now chant Loka Samasta, and please mute your microphones while I do that. Let us send healing and blessings and good wishes to everyone around us all over the world. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Malati ji, I have a quick question. This is Katyayani. Those, can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, I can.
Hello. Those of us who are not able to attend those night sessions that you have, will you be uploading those videos too?
Most of these will be uploaded onto YouTube, and the details of it will also be put onto the school WhatsApp. So you can, watch it at your leisure. All of them are recorded.
Okay, thank you.
So definitely the details will be on the school WhatsApp. So please do glance through it every now and then, so that you will get the details of the YouTube the YouTube link and so on. And this you can get on whenever you want at your leisure.
And Vaniji's are different, right? Or the same?
I'm not too sure about that. I will just check it, let you
This
know
also
next
will
time.
be uploaded towards, I think, either next week. I've already said they can upload. They will be uploading anytime soon.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, so I'm sure you will get a chance to see all the whole thing again.
Right. And I'd like to share it with some of my friends too. That's the reason. And besides,
Sure. That
Yeah.
will be lovely. That'll be
Yeah.
lovely. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Malati. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Vaniji.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.